Hi, I'm Caroline and thank you for joining me for some yoga today. Today we're going to focus on the hips and bringing some movement and space to that area. To begin with, we're going to start sitting cross-legged. If that's not comfortable for you for any reason, know that you can lie semi-supine, so lying on your back with your knees bent. Sitting cross-legged in Sukhasana. So my feet are crossed at the ankles here, and I'm actually sitting on some height. So I've got a yoga block. You could get a couple of large books or a couple of cushions, and just having a little bit of height under the hips, under the glutes, allows this area here to soften and allows the knees to have a little bit more space to drop down as well. It just usually feels a little bit more comfortable, and we're able to lengthen the lumbar spine a little easier as well. So finding your comfortable cross-legged position, rolling the shoulders up, back and down. And either taking the gaze towards the ground or closing the eyes. Sensing that length through the spine, the contact with the sitting bones and the prop you're sitting on. And starting to connect with the breath, breathing in and out through the nose. Noticing where the breath is reaching. If it feels quite high in the chest, encouraging the breath towards the belly. Taking a moment to notice if one nostril feels more dominant than the other, which is natural. This changes every few hours during the day. The breath may feel like it's entering one nostril a little bit easily or easier than the other. Encouraging length and the breath. And we're going to come into a simple version of alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana. So bringing the right hand and taking one finger, closing the right nostril. We're going to take 5 breaths in and out through the left nostril. If this feels restrictive in any way, just release that right hand and come back to breathing through both nostrils. If the left nostril is a little bit blocked and you want to continue, you can just release the finger or the hand away from the right nostril so you've got a little bit of space to breathe in that side as well. When you've taken 5 breaths through the left nostril, releasing the right hand and breathing in through both nostrils for 5 breaths. Maybe noticing any changes or differences to a few moments ago. And when you've taken those 5 breaths, we're going to take our left hand to our left nostril. Gently closing the left nostril and breathing in and out through the right for 5 breaths. Once again, if it doesn't feel right or feels uncomfortable in any way, taking the hand away. And if the right nostril feels a little blocked, just releasing the finger from the left nostril so you're able to breathe a little through that as well. Acknowledging any differences between the two sides. And when you've taken those 5 breaths, releasing that hand. Breathing in and out through both nostrils. It's a simple version of Nadi Shodhana. Bringing a sense of calm, balance to the body, but also a sense of serenity, clarity, and focus. Gently tucking the chin in towards the chest. If the eyes are closed, gently opening the eyes. And keeping the neck, the chin tucked in there. Gently creating some space in the back of the neck and the tops of the shoulders. And then gently bringing the head back up to center. Change the cross of the legs here, or maybe come to kneeling, coming to a comfortable seated position for you. And we're going to very gently move the neck and the head. So breathing in, breathing out, and taking the right ear to the right shoulder. So allowing the muscles in the side of the neck to soften, lengthen in their own time. If you feel you want a little bit more, something a little bit stronger, you can take the left hand and just creep the fingers away from you. And gently bring the head back up to center. And then we'll go over to the side. So breathing in, breathing out, taking the left ear to the left shoulder. And maybe this is enough. Maybe you'd like a little bit more, taking that right hand out away from the body. And gently bringing the head back up to center. We're going to breathe in, breathe out, take a glance over the right shoulder. Coming back through center, breathing in, breathing out, taking a glance over the left shoulder. And coming back to center. We're going to give ourselves 3 hugs. So making sure you've got space either side of you. Breathing and taking the hands out towards the sides of the body, about shoulder height. Thumbs are facing up to begin with, and then we'll take the thumbs facing down. So bringing that internal, external rotation to the shoulders, bring the thumbs back up, and then giving yourself a hug. Reaching as far around as you can. And then on the next inhalation, taking the hands out. Thumbs are up, thumbs are down. And on the next exhalation, giving yourself another hug. And if you can, have the opposite arm on top. And we're going to do that one more time. Breathing in, breathing out, taking the thumbs down. Breathing in, breathing out, and bringing the hands to give ourselves a hug. So bringing some movement to the shoulders and the upper back. And gently releasing. We're going to come to a kneeling position. If that's not comfortable, finding a different position for you. I'm just going to move the block out of the way. So from here, we're going to start to rotate the shoulders. I'm going to bring my hand to my shoulder. It doesn't really matter which side you start on. And I'm bringing the elbow into circular motion, coming forwards. making those circles quite big. I'm working with 5 here and then 5 in the opposite direction. And then doing the other side. So bringing the hands to the shoulders, making some lovely big circular movements from the elbow. And then all the way back, opposite direction. I've lost count already. So we're working in 5s here. And then releasing. We're going to do both almost at the same time. We're going to take one and then the other, so it becomes a bit of a twist. So I'm bringing one shoulder forwards and then the other. And I'm encouraging a little bit of a twist through the spine. So I'm turning to the left and the right. So just waking up the spine, the vertebrae. And then coming back to center. We're going to come into cat-cow, Konasana. So we want to think about our hand placement, making sure the fingers are nicely spread. Thinking about that internal rotation. And by that, what I mean is coming in, almost in towards the thumbs a little there. So as I place the hands under the shoulders, I've got a tendency to hang out on my little fingers. So if that's you as well, just making that adjustment. So we want the weight distribution to be equal through the pads for the fingers and the base of each finger as well. Always having a softness in the elbows, so avoiding locking the elbows. Inner elbows are pointing in towards each other. And then we're taking the shoulders in the opposite direction. So the shoulders are almost coming towards the ceiling a little, and my shoulder blades are coming together a little. So that external rotation there. The knees are roughly under hips. And if the wrists are feeling a little bit sore, you can come down onto your elbows. So bringing the elbows down instead. Breathing in, looking forwards, taking the tailbone up towards the sky. Breathing out to curl the spine round, taking the gaze towards the knees, spine towards the sky. Breathing in, coming in, allowing the belly towards move towards the floor, and breathing out to take the gaze towards the navel or the knees, and that arch through the spine. So taking 3 more like this. Don't worry if you lose the breath, just making sure you're breathing. And then coming back to that neutral spine. Sit back for a moment, just release the wrists. You might want to make some wrist rolls. I like to spread the fingers. It becomes almost like a finger dance, bringing some space here. And then we're going to do one of my favorites, motorbike pose. So taking the fists out in front of you and gently imagining you're revving a motorbike. So bringing again a little bit of a stretch to the wrists. Just 4 or 5 times. And then bringing the hands back down. We're going to come into circular hips. So again, hands placement, think about the hands placement. It's a little bit further away than cat-cow. So almost sort of, I guess, about 45 degrees. Knees are under hips. And then we're going to come into some circular movements, making sure the elbows are soft. So making circles with the hips. We're going to do 5 circles in one direction, 5 in the other. But you may find you get to a point and that just feels quite nice. That feels like you're releasing something there. So take a moment there, take a couple of breaths there. Don't worry too much about this number 5 I'm talking about today. Making this practice work for you and your body. If you are taking full circles, then making sure you swap directions. And then gently releasing the wrists here as well. We're going to come into external, internal rotation of the hips. So I'm going to demonstrate my left leg to begin with. Placing the hands, so coming back into that box position, thinking about the weight distribution into the hands, finding that space and For the neck, taking the shoulders away from the ears, I'm going to take my left knee in. So I'm bringing it in towards the chest. I'm then taking the knee out towards the side and then circling it around behind me and back in. So we're bringing the external and internal rotation into the hip socket. So the hips got 6 ranges of movement, and that's what we're working with today. And coming back down, I'm just going to change sides so you can see. So this time working on the right hand side, just making sure placement of hands, knees is feeling good, and then drawing the right knee in, taking the right knee out and taking it behind you. Tucking it in, out and behind you. We're going to do 2 more like this. And then slowly coming back to center. And just again, relieving the wrists, taking a moment to relieve the wrists. We're going to come into Sphinx now. So lying on our front and bringing the elbows underneath the shoulders. Now, if the lower back's not very happy in this position, you can take the elbows away from you and come into a softer Sphinx that allows this lumbar spine just to soften a little bit more. It's less of a back bend. Or maybe you prefer to come into Konasana, crocodile pose. And that's where the fingertips reach the elbows and the forehead comes down towards the arms. So whichever version of that, or whichever adaptation you would prefer. If you've got your elbows up, if you're in a version of Sphinx, thinking about the hands extending directly out from the elbows, and then drawing the shoulders down and the chest through. So this kind of proud Sphinx pose. We're going to start circling our feet. So bringing the heels towards the glutes, and then gently making some circles with the feet. It doesn't matter which direction you start in. It can be small circles, big circles, bringing some movement again to the hips. And slowly coming back to center and then working in the opposite direction. And then from here, allowing the feet to come back down, and we'll tuck back down into an extended child's pose. So big toes are together, knees are wide apart, and bringing the elbows towards the ground. So making sure the glutes are in contact with the heels. If this is uncomfortable in any way, you can bring a little bit of space towards the knees. That feels quite nice. I've got a block here. It could be a couple of cushions or a rolled up blanket. You might find that helps under the ankles as well, tops of the feet. But we're just making this a soft extended child's pose. So rather than extending the hands, the elbows are on the ground or on the mat, shoulders drawing away from the ears, the gaze is towards the floor so the neck is in line with the spine and the glutes are in contact with the heels. So just allowing a little bit of time for the hip flexors, all the muscles, ligaments, tendons in the hip, pelvis, around that area to soften. Directing the breath to that area as well. Now you may want to stay here, you may find you want a little bit more. And if you do, we're going to take the hands forwards a little. Hands are shoulder width apart, thinking about rotation in the arms. So internal rotations, we're rotating very gently into the thumb side there. So the weight is even over the hands, Hasta Bandha. And then the inner elbows are pointing in towards each other, and then we're drawing the shoulders away from the ears. A little bit more through the back now. So making sure we haven't compromised the contact between the heels and the glutes. If you know you can come all the way down to the floor, please feel free to come all the way down. Maybe you just have a little bit of a cushion or something under the forehead to support the head. Just making this your pose, your shape. From here, gently bringing the hands back in a little. We're going to come into that box position. Take one round of cat-cow, so taking the gaze forwards, the belly towards the mat, and then arching the spine, stretching the back, and coming back to center. We're going to come into a first downward facing dog. So thinking about the hand placement, shoulder width apart, inner elbows pointing in towards each other, encouraging that internal rotation through the wrists, drawing the shoulders away from the ears, tucking the toes, and coming into a first downward dog. And remember, this is the first one of our practice today. So keep the knees bent to begin with. Find that length in the spine, making sure you've got space for the neck. And if that's coming nice and easily today, maybe you start pedaling the feet, so gently walking our dog, bringing some length to the back of the legs, sitting bones reaching up towards the sky. Remembering to come down, rest at any point you need to. And then gently coming all the way down and taking a moment to rest, whether that's in child's pose, extended child's pose, whatever feels good for your body. So remembering yoga is very much about working with your body in that moment, particularly with the asana, with a physical practice. Our bodies can feel very different on different days and at different times. So making sure we're balancing the body through sthira and sukha, steadiness and ease. Wherever you are, coming into extended child's pose, so maybe the elbows are down, maybe you're extending through the fingers, gently pushing into the fingers if you are, and you'll notice you just apply a little pressure through the fingertips, drawing those shoulders away from the ears. You'll find a little bit more length through the back. From here, we're coming back up into our cat-cow. So placing the hands on the shoulders, just one round, breathing in, looking forwards, taking the belly towards the mat, breathing out to bring the spine up towards the sky. And coming back to center. Placement of hands, maybe change that if you know you need to for downward facing dog, tucking the toes, leading with the tailbone. So we want the tailbone, sitting bones, I should say, sitting bones up towards the ceiling. So top of the femur, top of the thigh bones, sitting bones reaching up. Feet, toes pointing forwards, feet about hip distance apart. Finding that length in the back, and then maybe coming into a static version of the pose, and maybe your knees are bent. Just making it your downward dog. Drawing the shoulder blades down the back. And then wherever you are, we're going to come into a forward fold, Uttanasana. So maybe you want to bend the knees and come down onto the mat before you get into it, or maybe you can bend into the knees from downward facing dog and walk the hands towards the feet. Take a moment, find your Uttanasana. Feet are hip distance apart, toes are pointing forwards. Think about the weight distribution over the feet. Does it feel like it's even? Make sure the knees are not collapsing in. Reaching up through the sitting bones, so find that length in the lumbar spine. Bending into the knees, bending more if you need to, if the hamstrings are not happy. Crown of the head moving towards the mat. And then we're going to bend into the knees and gently come up to standing. So hopefully the hips are feeling a little bit warmer already. We're going to come into a very simple sequence now, a kind of version of a sun salutation. So just making sure you're standing at one end of your mat if you're using a mat, and you've got space behind you to step back. To begin with, we're going to take the feet hip distance apart. So we're thinking about the big toes tracking under the iliac crest, these hip bones just here. So it's not exact science, just making sure that feels comfortable. Maybe you want to go a little bit wider, a little bit narrower. Always having a softness in the knees, length through the spine towards the crown of the head. Drawing down the fingertips. I'm going to breathe in, reach up. Breathing out, folding forwards. Have a bend in the knees, Uttanasana. From here, we're lifting through the sitting bones, so lengthening the back of the legs. Breathing. On the next inhalation, we're coming to the flat back position. So breathing in, maybe the fingertips reach the floor, maybe the hands come to the shins or the knees, whatever feels good for your body today. And then breathing out to fold forwards. We're taking the right leg back first. So the right leg's going back and we're coming onto the right knee. So we're in that lunge position, Anjali Mudra. We're going to take the left foot out towards the left-hand side a little. So if you're working on a mat, I've taken it to the left edge of the mat. If you're not, just enough space to bring both hands through center. Making sure that knee's safe, so the knee's above the ankle. And you might find you're flat on your hands. You might want to make fists. So I'm on fists here to come a little bit higher, find a bit more space. Wherever you are, we're going to tuck the right toes and take the right knee back a little bit further. So we're working with the hips today, so just finding a bit more space around the pelvis. And maybe this is enough for you today. Maybe you're wanting a little bit more, and this is where you can come through center a little. Maybe you come all the way down to the elbows, just making sure the knee is happy. Encouraging the breath to be long wherever you are. And if you're finding the hips or the glutes, the pelvis, anything in that area is very tight, directing the breath, visualizing the breath, softening the area. Carefully, gently coming back up to a lunge position, taking that left foot, wriggling it back in. And then from here, we're going to come back into a plank pose. So find your way into your plank. It might be on your toes, it might be on your knees. Making sure the hands are under shoulders with either variation, inner elbows pointing in towards each other. And then gently dropping the knees, coming through chest, chin. We're coming into Sphinx again, so elbows can either be under shoulders or a little bit further ahead to soften the back bend. Thinking about that proud position of the chest. And then very gently, we're going to press into the left hand to straighten the left arm, keeping the pelvis and the hip grounded, and take a glance over the left shoulder. Slowly lowering the left elbow and coming to the opposite side, just straightening the right arm and taking a glance over the right shoulder. Keeping the right hip, the right side of the hip and the pelvis grounded. And slowly coming back to center. Coming all the way down towards the mat, we're bringing the hands towards mid-chest, tucking the toes, downward facing dog. And now at this point, you can come into extended child's pose, or half dog, puppy, whatever feels best for you at this point. Making sure the hands are shoulder width apart. Feet are about hip distance apart. Maybe this is a dynamic movement for you. You're still wanting to walk the dog, pedal the feet. Maybe it's static, making it your downward dog. Remembering to breathe here. There's always a softness in the elbows and the knees. We avoid locking these joints. From here, we're going to bring the right foot forwards. So you might want to drop to the knees and step the right foot forwards. Otherwise, you can lift the right leg up and gently swing it through. Back into our lunge. Once you're there, bringing the left foot parallel with the right. And to our forward fold, Uttanasana. We're going to bend into the knees a little bit more. Breathing in, reaching up towards the sky. Breathing out to bring the hands back down to the sides of the body. And we'll come over to the other side. So coming into our Tadasana again. And the feet are about hip distance apart, just partly because we're working on the hips today. and around the pelvis. So making sure there's space there. You may want to take that gap a little bit wider or a little bit narrower. And then imagining you're gripping something in between the thighs. So you're standing in your Tadasana. If you're gripping something in between the thighs, you'll find that external rotation just a little bit. You find the legs, the femur bone, the thigh bones moving out just a little bit more. Softness in the knees, finding that length from the spine to the crown of the head, breathing in, reaching up, breathing out, folding forwards. Maybe noticing a lot more length in the hamstrings now, maybe not. Making sure the knees are bent accordingly. Sitting bones reaching up for the sky. So I mentioned Sthira and Sukha earlier, steadiness, knees. We want to find steadiness in the posture in the asana. And ease, and all that means is it's strong enough to maybe challenge us a little, but the ease must come to the breath as well. We must be able to breathe, take that length of the breath, softness in the breath. We're going to breathe in here, come into our flat back position, so fingertips to the floor or shins or knees, and then breathing out, folding forwards. We're going to step back with the left foot this time, left foot, and then left knee drops towards the floor into our lunge. Drawing the shoulders away from the ears, finding that space for the neck. And then we're going to sort of gently wiggle and maneuver the right foot out towards the right hand side. So if you are working with a mat, you can maybe use the right edge as a guide, but just making sure you've got enough space if you're not working on a mat that you can come forwards a little. So you may be on flat hands through the center here. You may want a little bit more height, so making fists can help there. If you've got props like blocks, you can come up even higher. If this is feeling okay and you want to come a little bit further, maybe you come all the way down onto your elbows, wherever you are, making sure the knee is safe. Noticing the difference between the two sides. So I can really feel the right side is much tighter than the left. Breathing into that area. And then slowly bringing the right foot in, back to center, coming back into our runner's lunge. This is where we step back into plank pose. So take your time. Maybe it's on knees, maybe it's on toes. Wherever you are, making sure the hands are under the shoulders, inner elbows pointing in towards each other. Remembering to breathe. Sometimes when we're holding a strong pose, we stop breathing. So making sure you still got that length in the breath. From here, gently dropping the knees down all the way, chest, chin, and we're coming back into our Sphinx pose. The hands are under shoulders. Sorry, hands are not on shoulders. Elbows are under shoulders. Remembering to take the hands forward a little if you want to soften the back bend. And we're going to breathe here. Drop the shoulders away from the ears. Come through with the chest. Remember, we're going to straighten that right arm to begin with. So pushing into the hand, taking a gaze over the right shoulder, encouraging the hips and the pelvis to stay grounded. And then coming over to the left-hand side. And gently coming back through center. Chest, chin towards the mat, hands, chest level, tucking into our downward facing dog. Knowing that extended child's pose or even balasana feels good at this point as an option. Thinking about the internal rotation in the wrists. So make sure the weight distribution is even over the hands. The inner elbows are pointing in towards each other. And the shoulders are moving away from the ears. Creates a bit of space for the neck and under the armpits. If you have got reasonably straight legs at this point, making sure there's always a micro bend in the knee and the sitting bones are reaching up towards the sky. Breathing here. We're going to be bringing the left foot forward, so you might want to drop the knees and then step the left foot forward. Otherwise, lifting the left leg and gently swinging it through. And then bringing the right foot parallel to the left or into our forward fold. To come up, bending into the knees a little more, powering through the feet, reaching up towards the sky and bringing the hands back down to the sides of the body. So we're going to come into some abduction, adduction, and also flexion and extension of the hips now. So all this is going to be is a little bit of balance. So if you know you're feeling a bit wobbly today, you might want to hold on to something, or even have a hand towards the wall or a sofa, a table. We're going to ground through our right foot to begin with. So think about the toes pointing forwards, lifting the toes, spreading the toes, and then gently pressing them back down. So finding that lovely stable base for a little bit of a balance. Hands on the hips. I'm trying to encourage the hips to stay level here. I'm going to lift my right leg off, not very much. And as I lift it off, it almost feels like you can bring the femur bones, the top of the femur here in the ball and socket, right into the pelvis. And then I'm gently going to take the foot forwards and gently take it back. It can be a really small movement. It can be an even larger movement. Working again with your body, making sure the standing leg, there's a softness in the knees. You haven't locked that knee. Still lifting through the crown of the head. And then coming back to center, and we're going to take it out to the sides, trying not to put the foot down on the ground. So taking it out to the side just a little and bringing it back in. So we're trying to keep the hips level. So if the further out we take it, the more of a squint we will get in our hips. That's a good word. So bringing them out just a little bit to encourage the pelvis to stay stable and horizontal. And slowly bring it in. You might notice I'm wobbling there. So we're going to work on the left foot now, spreading the toes and finding that stable brace through the left foot. So as you spread the toes, you'll notice the contact with the mat or the floor here. Trying to keep that lift through the center of the foot. And then we're going to work with our right leg. So gently taking it forwards and gently taking it back. So again, this can be a really small movement, or you can make it a little bit larger, a little bit more exaggerated. Thinking about the pelvis, these iliac crests, these hip bones, they're level. If you are balancing without support, thinking about that focus, focusing on something still to help you balance. Slowly taking the foot out to the sides and back in. So again, nothing too large. Trying, encouraging the hips to stay level. And bringing the foot back down. Giving the feet a little wriggle, maybe the hips a little wriggle, and then we'll come into a reaching up here. So finding the hip distance apart between the feet, finding that balance between the feet, lifting the toes, spreading the toes down. I'm going to breathe in and reach up. Breathe out and fold over to the right hand side. I'm going to kick my hip out here a little bit, just to, it feels quite nice. It might not for you, so just work with your body. Have a softness in the knees, try not to lock the knees. Softness in the elbows, coming back up to center and going over into the opposite direction, and maybe kicking the hip out on that side as well. And then slowly coming back up to center and releasing the hands. We'll come into a very simple squat, Malasana, and I'm looking for blocks here. Sometimes it's quite nice to actually sit on a block, and I'll demonstrate that now. So as I come down, I'm sitting on a support. It could be a pile of books, something sturdy, maybe you've got a little footstool, and that will feel quite nice. It can release everything and have that support and allow everything to release here. If you're not using a support, coming down, sitting down. So really sitting down here, allowing the tailbone, the sitting bones to come all the way down. I'm going to bring my hands together at heart center. So Anjali Mudra, and I'm going to use my elbows here to encourage my knees back a little. So your stance might be narrower, it might be wider, you might be higher, working wherever you can to create a bit of space in the hips and the hip flexors. Wherever you are, just making sure you're not sort of falling forwards. We're trying to keep the crown of the head long, the spine long. sitting down. One more breath here. And then gently releasing the hands and coming all the way to the ground. We're going to come into a very simple version of Pigeon Pose, actually a supine version. So lying down, bringing hands either side of the body. Knees are bent, feet are on the floor. I'm going to bring the outside of the right foot to the front of the left thigh. And then gently bring the left knee in towards the body. So I'm not going to use the hands, I'm going to keep that lovely space in the shoulders and the chest for the breath. So working here with the glutes, huge muscles that aid us walking and support the hips and the pelvis. So if it's feeling very tight, this might be enough for you. If you're wanting a little bit more, drawing the left knee in that little bit further. Directing the breath to that right hip, that right glute. And then gently releasing the left foot and changing sides. So taking the outside of the left foot to the front of the right thigh, drawing the right knee in. Again, maybe drawing it in a little bit further to increase that stretch. And then slowly bringing the foot back down towards the ground. We're going to come into a supine Baddha Konasana now. So bringing the feet or the soles of the feet together, and the hands can come to the belly if that feels comfortable. So take a moment to make sure the lower back feels okay. And if the knees are quite high up, you can bring some cushions or some padding underneath to support them. And that will just allow everything to soften in its own time. If you take the heels away from you, you may find that's more comfortable for the lower back. Heels tuck in, slightly stronger arch often in the lumbar spine. We want to try and soften the lumbar spine, the lower back into the floor, into the mat. Taking a few breaths here. Becoming aware of the glutes. Often we're holding the glutes and that's holding the legs and the knees. So letting go. Sense of surrendering to this posture, to this asana. Allowing the knees to soften towards the ground. Gravity to do its work. Maybe closing down the eyes and bringing the focus to the breath. At this point, if the eyes are closed, keeping them closed, gently drawing the knees back in towards each other, maybe using the hands to help that happen. And then you can stay here with the knees bent, the feet flat on the floor for relaxation, or maybe you'd prefer to extend the feet out and come into full Shavasana. Coming into full Shavasana, allowing the shoulders to soften and the palms to face up towards the sky. Taking a moment to make any adjustments you feel you need to get comfortable. And so we began the class with a pranayama, a breathing exercise. And we'll finish the class with our focus on the breath, but rather than practicing a pranayama, we're using it as an anchor. A focus to bring stillness to the mind and the body. So following the breath in and out through the nose. Allowing the feet to gently roll out to the sides. A softening around the hips and the glutes. Softening in the shoulders, allowing the arms to relax, the fingers to lightly curl. Softening of the jaw, allowing the tongue to rest in the lower part of the jaw. Softening of the facial muscles. Breathing in and out through the nose, following the breath. And visualizing the breath traveling down the legs to the toes, softening each area as it goes. Visualizing the breath reaching the hips, the pelvis, the glutes, the area we've brought focus to today. Sense of letting go, softening with the breath. Noticing the rise and the fall of the belly with the breath. And the expansion of the rib cage as you breathe in and breathe out. Encouraging the shoulders to soften. And visualizing the breath traveling down the arms all the way to the fingertips. Bringing a sense of lightness. As you breathe in, visualize the breath reaching all the way from the toes to the fingertips and towards the crown of the head. Knowing it's nurturing, supporting each body system. Knowing you can stay here for a little longer, if you'd like to stay in Shavasana in relaxation. Gently starting to awaken the body with a few deeper breaths, a deeper inhalation. Maybe sighing the breath out. Gently bringing movement to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Maybe taking the head gently from side to side. Maybe taking an overhead stretch or hugging the knees in or both, whatever movements feel good for your body. Wherever you are, taking your time, but rolling over onto your right hand side. Taking a few moments there. And then using your hands to push yourself up to sitting. Finding a comfortable seated position if you're coming cross-legged. Maybe finding your prop again to sit on. Finding the length in the spine once again through to the crown of the head. And bringing the hands together at heart center. Anjali Mudra, gently closing the eyes for the last few moments of this session. Noticing maybe a little energy between the palms of the hands, the fingertips. Prana we've created through our yoga practice together. Maybe an awareness of space in the body for the breath. Maybe a little bit more space around the hips and the pelvis. And finish our practice. I'm going to take my hands to my forehead to remind us to have kind thoughts, to my lips to remind us to have kind words, and back down to my heart center to remind us to have kind actions. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining me today for some yoga. If you're practicing in the morning, just remembering that things may have been a little bit tighter, a little bit stiffer because the body's not had time to awaken up. And if you're practicing in the evening, I hope you enjoyed just stretching out the body and finding some softness in the body to wind down after the day. I'm Caroline. Thank you once again for joining me. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about me, my website is www.theyogacrow.com. Do click the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this class and click subscribe to get notifications of other classes. Otherwise, it's goodbye from me and I hope to see you again soon.